Are you with me? Because we're moving into chapter 16. Now we're going to spend a little time in chapter 16 because it's a really big deal, especially in the lives of the Israelites, in the tabernacle service, and in the life story of God's people. Chapter 16 talks about the Day of Atonement. And this is a very holy and sanctified day for the people because the high priest would come into the presence of the Lord to make atonement for the people, meaning that through a sacrifice, the shedding of blood, their sins would be covered for another year. This is necessary because remember, God is holy and the people are not. The people continually sin because God's law is perfection and every person falls short of it. So this is the stage that he is setting for his people to be able to live as his people. They must be atoned for. And of course, this is the foundation for what Jesus came to do many years later, where Jesus became the final sacrifice for our atonement. He didn't just cover sins, he wiped our slate clean. And so we thank God for that. So I'm going to read a lot of verses in this chapter. I'm going to stop briefly to explain what we're reading, but let's just get deep into the activity of the story. Let's get deep into the action of this priesthood and see what happened on this very holy day. So now the Lord spoke to Moses after the death of the two sons of Aaron, when they offered profane fire before the Lord and died. And the Lord said to Moses, "Tell Aaron your brother not to come at just any time into the holy place inside the veil, before the mercy seat which is on the ark, lest he die. For I will appear in the cloud above the mercy seat." In this instruction, God referenced the two sons of Aaron as a reminder to Aaron that there is a way to approach God. You cannot come when you want. You cannot come how you want. You have to come at the invitation and with the procedure that God has already outlined. Thus Aaron shall come into the holy place with the blood of a young bull as a sin offering and of a ram as a burnt offering. He shall put the holy linen tunic and the linen trousers on his body. He shall be girded with a linen sash, and with the linen turban he shall be attired. These are holy garments. Therefore he shall wash his body in water and put them on. In Aaron's preparation to come before the Lord, he is not going to be wearing the beautiful garments that he had, the breastplate and the ephod and that which was created for glory and for beauty. Instead, he is to be simply and humbly attired with a linen tunic and with a linen trousers. So he is coming before the Lord very humbly. And he is bringing the blood of a young bull as a sin offering, and remember the blood of a ram as a burnt offering. Now, this blood that he is bringing, it's not to atone for the people of Israel. This is to atone for Aaron and his household. So before he can go on behalf of the people, he has to be made right with God. We continue. And he shall take from the congregation of the children of Israel 2 kids of the goats as a sin offering, and 1 ram as a burnt offering. Aaron shall offer the bull as a sin offering, which is for himself, and make atonement for himself and for his house. He shall take the 2 goats and present them before the Lord at the door of the tabernacle of meeting. Then Aaron shall cast lots for the 2 goats, 1 lot for the Lord and the other lot for the scapegoat. And Aaron shall bring the goat on which the Lord's lot fell, and offer it as a sin offering. But the goat on which the lot fell to be the scapegoat shall be presented alive before the Lord, to make atonement upon it, and to let it go as a scapegoat into the wilderness. Here we are. Aaron is dressed and he is bringing the blood of the offering for himself and for his family. And one of the things you will notice as you continue to read through the chapter is that it is only Aaron who is doing any activity during this procedure. Aaron has no priestly help. He is the only one who brings the blood and is able to go into the holy place. And the two goats that are brought, they are to be similar in size and color and in value. One was to be killed and his blood sprinkled in the tabernacle, and one would carry the sins of Aaron and then the people in and go into the wilderness. So that would where we get the term the scapegoat. We continue. And Aaron shall bring the bull of the sin offering, which is for himself, and make atonement for himself and for his house, and shall kill the bull as a sin offering, which is for himself. Then he shall take a censer full of burning coals of fire from the altar before the Lord, with his hands full of sweet incense, beaten fine, and bring it inside the veil. And he shall put the incense on the fire before the Lord, that the cloud of incense may cover the mercy seat that is on the testimony, lest he died. When Aaron goes beyond the veil into the holy place, he's taking the censer with the fire and the incense, and that incense is going to fill that room. Now, the mercy seat sat on top of the ark, the box, right? That was placed in there. And if you remember, the mercy seat was in between the two cherubim that were on the lid of this ark. So Aaron is in this room with the cloud of incense, the glory of the Lord, and he's almost shielded from the full exposure of the glory of God. So let's read a little bit more. Verse 14, he shall take some of the blood of the bull and sprinkle it with his finger on the mercy seat on the east side. And before the mercy seat, he shall sprinkle some of the blood with his finger 7 times. Verse 15, then he shall kill the goat of the sin offering, which is for the people, bring its blood inside the veil, and do with the blood as he did with the blood of the bull, and sprinkle it on the mercy seat and before the mercy seat. So he shall make atonement for the holy place because of the uncleanness of the children of Israel, and because of their transgressions for all their sins. So he shall do for the tabernacle of meeting, which remains among them in the midst of their uncleanness. There are 2 sacrifices that's happening here. The first sacrifice with the bull is for Aaron and his household. He makes that presentation of its blood beyond the veil, and then he comes back out and he does the other sacrifice for the people, and he brings that to the Lord, and he also presents it there. Now, as you read, you will see that the Lord talks about the actual tent being unclean. And you can think, why would it be unclean if the presence of the Lord is there? Well, remember, the tent and all the utensils are continually touched by the priests who are not pure. So through the sprinkling of the blood, the actual tabernacle, the altar, everything is cleansed. Verse 17, there shall be no man in the tabernacle of meeting when he goes in to make atonement in the holy place until he comes out, that he may make atonement for himself, for his household, and for all the assembly of Israel. And he shall go out to the altar that is before the Lord and make atonement for it, and shall take some of the blood of the bull and some of the blood of the goat and put it on the horns of the altar all around. Then he shall sprinkle some of the blood on it with his finger 7 times, cleanse it, and consecrate it from the uncleanness of the children of Israel. And when he has made an end of atoning for the holy place, the tabernacle of meeting, and the altar, he shall bring the live goat. Aaron shall lay both his hands on the head of the live goat, confess over it all the iniquities of the children of Israel and all their transgressions concerning all their sins, putting them on the head of the goat, and shall send it away into the wilderness by the hand of a suitable man. I'm going to pause for one moment just to highlight something right here. The Lord highlights for Moses that Aaron's going to put his hands on the goat's head, the one that is alive, and confess over it the iniquities of the children of Israel all their transgressions and concerning all of their sins. So everything that they do that is contrary to God's heart, God's will, and God's law must be confessed. And so this goat is going to bear the guilt and the shame and the weight of all of their iniquities, their transgressions, and their sins. Carrying on to verse 22. The goat shall bear on itself all their iniquities to an inhabited land, and he shall release the goat in the wilderness. So let's recap. After the high priest's sin was dealt with and the tabernacle was cleansed, then Aaron dealt with the sin of the people through the transference of their sins, their iniquities, and their transgressions onto this scapegoat. And then that scapegoat is taken out of the city into the wilderness and released. And that is a form of separation that we're seeing, the separation of Israel from their sins. So the first animal was killed, the blood covered them, and now we're seeing the sin being separated or removed from among them. Then Aaron shall come into the tabernacle of meeting, shall take off the linen garments which he put on when he went into the holy place, and shall leave them there. And he shall wash his body with water in a holy place, put on his garments, come out and offer his burnt offering and the burnt offering of the people, and make atonement for himself and for the people. The fat of the sin offering he shall burn on the altar, and he who released the goat as the scapegoat shall wash his clothes and bathe his body in water, and afterward he may come into the camp. The bull for the sin offering and the goat for the sin offering, whose blood was brought in to make atonement in the holy place, shall be carried outside the camp, and they shall burn in the fire their skins, their flesh, and their offal. Then he who burns them shall wash his clothes and bathe his body in water, and afterward he may come into the camp. After the scapegoat is released, now the high priest must wash again. The one who released the scapegoat must also wash. And the burnt offerings, the sin offering and the burnt offering, must be completely consumed outside of the tabernacle. And the one who was helping with that offering, they have to also be washed. When this process is finished and the atonement is made for Aaron and for the people, then now the high priest would come out in new garments, and he would put on the ephod, the breastplate, all the beautiful garments that have been made for him. Now he emerges in the garments that were made for glory and for beauty. And we see that this process has been completed. Now, this Day of Atonement would have been such a hallowed day for the people. It would have been a day of fasting. It would have been a day when people were supposed to reflect on their sin. And through all of the different parts of the procedure, I read it a little bit quickly, but it would have taken time, done with intention and solemnity. There was a specific day for the Day of Atonement. As the Lord instructed at the beginning of this chapter, Aaron could not just come any day he wanted to. He didn't choose the day. God chose the day. So it would happen in the 7th month on the 10th day of the month. And they were called to afflict their soul. So as I mentioned before, it would have been a day of fasting. It would have been a Sabbath of solemn rest. And the focus would have been on the atonement. And the atonement could only happen through the shedding of the blood. So the priest, the high priest, Aaron, was the only person who could actually carry out this procedure, go beyond the veil into the holy place, and do what was required of him. And he would do this procedure only once a year. This is a very solemn time for the Israelites. And as we continue through the Bible, we'll read that this was something that was observed throughout their generations.